All right, seeing that is past 7 PM, and there's no open forum sheets in line, we will call the meeting to order of the Prior Lake Savage Area School Board. And with that, we'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. All members are present tonight with the exception of Todd, and then Stacy informed me that she will be about 20 to 30 minutes late, so she will be arriving then. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
By Lee, do I have a second?
Second.
By Ben, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. These items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the consent agenda?
So moved.
By Ben, do I have a second?
Second.
By Lee. All those in favor of the approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is the resolution for the acceptance of gifts. And tonight we have gifts from the Prior Lake Savage Optimist Club, the Lake Lions Club, the Lake VFW Post 6208, a gift from Fong's Restaurant and Event Center, a gift from Target of Savage, and a gift from The Point. Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the gifts?
So moved.
By Lee, do I have a second?
Second.
By Melissa. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, this is a resolution will be enacted by a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is Laker Pride. Dr. Stallo.
Good evening, everyone. It sure was fun during the Pledge of Allegiance to hear student voices during that, so thank you so much. Students across Prior Lake Savage Area Schools do so much for our community, and they really demonstrate every day being contributing members of our ever-changing global community. Tonight we get a chance to hear from and recognize students and some staff members from Five Hawks who have been doing some incredible things. They are going to tell us about GLOBES, Global Learning Opportunities to Better Empower Students, which grew out of the We Day experiences that the students have taken a part in for several years. Five Hawks students have had the opportunity to do service projects which positively impact others, both locally and globally. And to get a better idea of this, rather than listening to me, we have several students and staff members who are going to join me up here and share a little bit more about GLOBES.
Hello, my name is Michelle Fisher, and I'm one of the 3 coordinators for GLOBES. Jill Salchow and Jamie Chilson also help out with it. It is a group that we kind of saw a need for in our Five Hawks building. With student council kind of being taken away, we felt that we needed our students to still take pride in their school and also to step up and do some service projects. So 4 years ago, Jill and I started it with the We Day events that were taking place at the Xcel Energy Center. And then when Jamie Chilson came to 5th grade, she joined in with us. So I'm going to let these kiddos take a minute. These are actually 8 of our 17 members that we have. So these 8 are going to explain a little bit more about it, but I'm going to let Mrs. Salchow take the reins here. Up on the screen, 2 things that we kind of live by as believe there is good in the world, and then our acronym is Global Learning Opportunities.
So I just want to tell you a little bit about the group and how we chose them. When they were fourth graders, they filled out an application. And we went through that application and with a fine tooth comb had to narrow it down because we used to attend the We Day, which was at the Excel Center in St. Paul, and we were only allowed so many tickets to that. So that kind of limited our number. We Day still exists, but they don't hold that event in St. Paul. So we're hoping that we can take some more students on next year. It depends on our energy level, I think, but we're hoping that we can. Just so you know, this is a completely student-run opportunity. So they come up with something global they want to do, something local around here that they want to do. They do all the advertising. They do all the speaking at school. They are the ones who come up with all the ideas, contact everybody. They've had budgets. They figure out what they need to do. And then when we're all done, it's their responsibility to share what we did and how much we were able to impact the world or something local by sharing that at our all-school meetings. So here we go. Ready?
Spirit Days. Globes members choose one day of the month to do something fun to show our school spirit. For example, September was our Laker Pride. Wear blue and gold. October was Crazy Hair Day, and coming up in November is Color Day. Each grade level gets assigned a color.
Hurricane relief. Last year, our global fundraiser focused on the people of Puerto Rico. We decided after Hurricane Maria that we wanted to raise money so they could purchase the supplies they needed to survive. We took a week in October and had a different dollar day each day. Our Five Oaks community raised $1,369.68.
Unity Day. For the past 2 years, Five Hawks has been promoting Unity Day. We wear orange to show that we stand together against bullying and united for kindness, acceptance, and inclusion.
Globes Drive. The Globes organize this event for kids in need during the holiday season. The whole school participates in bringing a different food items each day. When the food drive is over, the Globe students packs up the canned foods into boxes and puts it into trucks and brings it to people in need.
At Edmonton Tree, we put up a tree in the front entry of the school for students. We collect hats, mittens, scarves, boots, and winter jackets. We donate these to the children.
Pennies for Patients. Globes members create all the advertisements and announcements to promote Pennies for Patients. The fifth graders transform their classrooms into a wax museum, and each student must bring a coin to see the wax character come to life. In 2 hours last year, we raised $2,800.
Five Hawks Fun Run. Last year was our very first Five Hawks Fun Run. We wanted the money for the local organization, which last year we donated to the Secondhand Hounds. And the Five Hawks Fun Run is for any people, and they can bring their pets. It starts off at Five Hawks and goes down through the Five Hawks Trail for the Five Hawks neighborhood. And the people that participate bring donations to, like, last year we did the pet rescue, secondhand hounds, pet rescues to enter the run. We donated 2 trucks loads of food, supplies, and kennels. This year's big events. This year for our global event, we will be helping endangered animals.
For our local event, we will be helping a former Five Hawks student who is diagnosed with cancer. Endangered animals. Our global event will be happening in January 2019. Our focus this year is on helping endangered animals. We are going to raise money for the Ellen DeGeneres Wildlife Fund, which will be established to support global conservation efforts for critically endangered species such as mountain gorillas. We are currently organizing this event and putting our ideas and plans into it.
Courage for Coal Fun Run. Our local event will happen in the spring. We will be raising funds to help one of our very own former Five Hawks students. Cole Gramlow was diagnosed with Burkitt's
Bomia in August of 2018. We want to help him and his family in any way we can.
Thanks for listening.
And this is why we do what we do every day. I'm humbled by the care that you have for the world around us, both locally and in a larger scale. I want to thank you students for dedicating so much of your time to help others. I want to thank staff members who make it possible to support the kids as they have these amazing ideas. And parents, thank you for being here tonight. We measure a lot in schools these days by academic standards and standardized tests and some of those kinds of things. Tonight, you're reminding us again what's really important as we reach out to the larger community and world around us. So thank you very much. Great job, kids.
With that, next item on the agenda is personnel items, and with that, I will hand it over to Executive Director of HR, Mr. Matt Mons.
All right, first up this evening, I would like to recommend the following candidates for employment, and am seeking board approval.
Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the candidates for employment?
So moved.
By Mary, do I have a second?
Second.
By Melissa, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes 5-0.
And next up, I present the following leaves of absence, and am seeking board approval.
Do I have a motion for the acceptance for the leaves of absence?
So moved.
By Lee, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mary, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes 5-0.
And then I've got two staffing requests this evening, the first of which is in the certified staffing realm. And so this is a recommendation for two different positions, the first of which is additional special education staffing for setting 3 at Hidden Oaks Middle School and Bridges ALC. And then secondly, also looking for a .5 coordinator position in our early childhood special education. As we've discussed, what we had projected, the capture rate that it's been a sizable increase for us. And so this is the staffing that we need on the certified end to kind of make all of this work as we've moved people around throughout the district to accommodate that growth. Would you like me to move on to the educational support staff request, or would you like to take this? Perfect.
Do I have a motion for the approval of the certified staffing request?
So moved.
By Mary, do I have a second?
Second.
By Ben, are there any questions or comments? Question on this position that will be split between Homs and Bridges ALC, what is the percentage?
The percentage there will be close to 50-50, but I think they're going to just kind of see where that needs to land and where the student needs are. But I believe that at this point it was supposed to be pretty darn close to 50-50.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes 5-0.
All right, and next up is an educational support staffing request. The first part kind of coincides with the certified staffing request, which is we're looking at an additional 3 paraprofessional positions for the 18-19 school year. And then in addition to the paraprofessional support there, we're also looking for just 7 additional hours per week in the Glendale Media Center. That brings them back onto kind of equal footing with the rest of our elementary schools, based on the increased student population at that site from last year to this year. And then looking at a building monitor for community education services. And then 2 coaching positions, an additional assistant coach for the varsity boys basketball team, and also an additional full-time cheer coach. And both of those recommendations have been reviewed by Russ Reitz as well for Title IX implications.
Do I have a motion for the,
So moved.
by Mary? Do I have a second?
Second.
By Lee. Are there any questions or comments?
With the media support for Glendale, when we did the redistricting over from Red Tail Ridge, did we move the budget over and people, or how did that work?
Typically, we do look at that, so staffing typically does flow, and so we had made those adjustments, for instance, with new supervisors, et cetera. That was just an area that we weren't looking at in quite the same way, and didn't realize that they had been a little short-staffed the year before as well, so it was time for a little bit of catch-up there.
Okay, so this is an addition? Kind of?
Correct.
Okay.
This is an addition.
And is the 5,200 that's mentioned in here, is that retroactive to the beginning of the year for the additional staff that was needed, or is this point going forward?
Yeah, that would be this point going forward.
Okay.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Just a quick question on the varsity boys basketball assistant coach. Can you walk us through, it says the position will be booster funded and paid by the district?
I'm sorry, so we've just clarified that and brought those through. Just to clarify that the boosters do not pay our coaches. So the boosters give the funds to the district and we then pay our coaches. And it hasn't always been consistent in that manner. So we've tried to clarify that as we've brought staffing requests forward for those booster funded positions. But it does not come as a district expense.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
okay. But yet we're looking for 5425?
Correct, and so that's going to be the dollar amount reserved there, but
Okay.
the funding is going to come from the boosters,
Okay,
but
got
we'll pay that.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? That passes 5-0. There is no unfinished business tonight. We move on to new business. The Facilities Planning and Construction, Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Holmberg, and Director of Operations, Mr. Delwall. And if you would introduce
Yes, we will.
your guest.
All right, good evening, Chair Wolf, members of the board, and Dr. Stallo. We're here with Jeff Martin from Nexus to go over a couple different components of facilities planning construction update this evening. This is, the first part of it is going to be going through several bid packages that have come forward, and you have the associated information in your board packet. So we're gonna spend some time on this slide so you can see I guess the sequence of things that we're gonna be going through. Mr. Martin and Mr. Dell will be going through those bids now, and having the board have questions, discussion around it, seeking approval of those, and then once we've gone through that, then we have the second part of the presentation, which is just a brief update on the new elementary design progress. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Dell and Mr. Martin.
Good evening, Chair Wolf, School Board, Dr. Stallo. We do have several bids in front of you, including Twin Oaks construction, equipment package, and some quotes. Hidden Oaks construction and quotes, and then Bridges ALC. If we can start with Twin Oaks, we would like to award work scope 1 to New Look Construction for $344,822, and that should be New Look Contracting. $344,822. Work scope 2, Prior Lake Blacktop, $124,403. Work scope 3, Mo's Contracting Incorporated, $4,480,999. Work scope 4, aluminum entrance and storefronts, Empire House Incorporated, $185,370. Work scope 5, W.L. Hall Company, in the amount of $41,415. Food service equipment, work scope 6, to Cullinex, $288,080. Work scope 7, Clam Mechanical Contractors, $745,000. Work scope 8, Thielen Heating and Roofing, $268,000. Work scope 9, Electrical AE2S Construction, in the amount of $887,000. We recommend the board award bids totaling $7,364,090. And the bid tabulation is attached.
Okay, why don't we take a motion for the acceptance of these bids for Twin Oaks, and then we can follow up with questions and comments. Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the bids for the Twin Oaks Middle School additions and renovations?
So made.
By Ben, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mary. Are there any questions or comments? Go ahead, Mary.
Some of these vendors are the same as we just approved for the high school. Is there any opportunity, or was there any opportunity to maybe get economies of scale out of any of these, even though they're completely separate projects? I'm just assuming, like, set up of trailers, all that kind of stuff going on, if they're coming to the area once.
Sure, I think that certainly helps. If they're in town already, it certainly would help.
Yeah, that was exactly New Look's plan. They were able to have all their equipment here, so they bid everything cheaper.
Okay, that makes sense. I was noticing that too.
Yes, ma'am.
We also were fortunate to have a couple local contractors win on these bids.
One of the questions I also had was, last time we had a series of combined bids, but I couldn't really tell if something happened here, where they bid on multiple portions and then they got a kind of an aggregated.
There's only a couple that did on this project. Yep.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next piece of business is quotes for Twin Oaks Middle School. So again, these fall underneath the bid requirement of $175,000. The advantage of quoting separately is if we put them into a big bid package, contractors will add premium to that. So we actually look for quotes ourselves. So we're looking for approval of retaining wall at Twin Oaks, Dutch Creek Landscape, $48,937. HVA controls to Ewell Company in the amount of $109,950. And test and balancing, Premier Test and Balance in the amount of $21,400 for a total of $180,287. Again, these were quotes,
Okay,
not subject to the bid loss.
okay. Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the quotes?
So moved.
By Lee, and do I have a second?
Second.
By Melissa. Are there any questions or comments on these quotes for the Twin Oaks Middle School?
Just one of the statements in the other quotes have been whether we're on budget with these quotes too, and I just wanted to know if you could answer that question since it's not in the paragraph submitted to the board. He's laughing.
Yes. And give or take, I
Yeah.
believe test and balance, we had a budget within $500 of the quote we received. So I would say yes, we are.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of acceptance of the quotes for Twin Oaks Middle School signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next is equipment package for Twin Oaks and Hidden Oaks Middle School. So again, the district purchases equipment. We save markup and sales tax from the contractors. Item number one is variable air volume boxes and thermal equalizers from TMS Johnson. in the amount of $8,515. Fan coil units and modular air handlers, Schwab, Wallhaber, Lubret, in the amount of $58,390. And rooftop energy recovery system, ERVU, Schwab, again, in the amount of $88,035, for a total of $154,940. Again, these are direct purchase by the school district.
What page is that, 80? Okay, give me a second. Yeah, I think I forwarded. Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the equipment package
So moved.
by Mary? Do I have a second?
Second.
By Lee. Are there any questions or comments?
One thing, I just noticed that TMS Johnson was also significantly less than the other ones. Was that because they could combine any services, or are they local? I mean, what,
Well, they're all local.
okay,
As far as being combined, there really isn't, I mean, they all bid the same scope of work,
Okay.
VAV boxes and thermal equalizers, so
okay.
they just had a sharper pencil.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That passes 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to Hidden Oaks. Hidden Oaks Construction. Bids for Prior Lake Savage Schools, Hidden Oaks. We opened bids at 2 o'clock on Thursday, October 25th at the District Service Center. We recommend the following. Work Scope 1, Veit and Company, in the amount of $880,655. Paving curbs and gutters, Ebert Construction, in the amount of $528,200. Work Scope 3, Donlar Construction Company, in the amount of $3,400,000. Work Scope 4, Empire House, in the amount of $328,000. Work Scope 5, HVAC, Plumbing and Piping, Clam Mechanical, in the amount of $442,800. Work Scope 6, Thielen Heating and Roofing, in the amount of $346,000. And Work Scope 7, Phase Electrical, Phaser Electric Company, in the amount of $515,000. We recommend school board award bids totaling $6,432,783. Again, bid tabulation attached.
Okay. Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the bids from the Hidden Oaks Middle School additions and renovations?
So made.
By Stacy. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Mary. Are there any questions or comments on these bids?
Ditto on the budget. I didn't see a notice on here. Are we still within budget with this number for those bid packs?
We had planned on using some contingency
Okay.
for this one, and I think we used about 500,000 more
than
than
what
we
we thought.
anticipated.
Okay.
So we'll have to make that up.
Yep, so with contingency, we still are on target.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of acceptance of these bids for the Hidden Oaks Middle School additions and renovations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? That passes 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Hidden Oaks quotes. We have HVAC controls to Yule Company in the amount of $86,500. HVAC testing and balancing, Premier Test and Balance, in the amount of $28,100. In summary, total quotes, $114,600. We are seeking approval.
Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the quotes for Hidden Oaks Middle School?
So made.
By Mary, do I have a second?
Second.
By Stacy, are there any questions or comments on these quotes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That passes 6-0.
Thank you. Bridges ALC Center. We've got several work scopes to approve. Starting with work scope number 3, construction results. in the amount of $1,741,900. We're looking for a recommendation for bid scope 3. General contractor.
Give me one moment, please.
We're seeking approval, correct?
Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the bids for Bridges Area Learning Center? By Ben, do I have a second?
Second.
By Lee, are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, could you explain the note in red about work scope 7, that the motion be made to reject the bids for the 7, and then this? Could you just explain how that all worked on the statement here?
Sure, absolutely. We had a target savings that we wanted to achieve out of that work scope. We did not get there, so we want to get there. So we're going to reject those bids and go back and achieve more savings.
So the bid we are looking at here is just for the 17419?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the rest of it was how much that we were over, that we want to go back and try to get a better deal?
That's scope 7.
That was, that was work scope 7. I think there's maybe about $50,000 we're going to try to get out of that,
Oh,
some
okay.
more.
Okay,
So enough to make it worthwhile.
okay.
And that will not hold up the work. It's for storefronts.
Oh, all
Yep,
right.
it's just
okay,
the aluminum
yeah,
entrances and interior
Yeah.
glazing.
makes sense, okay.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes 6-0.
Okay, and then finally, Bridges Area Learning Center for quotes. Work scope 5, retaining wall, fences and gates. Peterson Companies in the amount of $102,795. Work scope number 10, fire protection, general sprinkler, $46,500. Work scope 12, controls, Yule Company, $57,750. And test and balance, Premier Test and Balance, $11,500. Combined quotes, $218,545. We are seeking approval.
Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the quotes for Bridges Area Learning Center?
So moved.
By Melissa, do I have a second?
Second.
By Stacy, are there any questions or comments? Go ahead, Mary.
You had a work scope 10 on here for fire protection that only contained the sprinkler. Where does the rest of the fire protection go?
Fire alarm.
Well, even the casings for the let's say for the fire extinguishers themselves and all that kind of stuff, and the fire alarm casings and the fire alarm themselves, yeah.
Those items were bid as miscellaneous specialties with the general contractor.
Okay. So in other words, if a layperson's looking at this and it says fire protection, that's not the only fire protection that's going in
No,
there?
when you see fire protection, it's just sprinklers. Fire
Okay.
alarm is with the electrician. The specialties are with the general contractor.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? That passes 6-0.
Okay, one other item.
Before we get to that, Mr. Martin.
Yes, sir.
We reviewed all these items in the Facilities Long Range Planning Committee, and we took a look at a preliminary budget. What is the remaining contingency fund for, first of all, a question. The remaining two projects we have to bid yet are the high school and the new elementary, correct?
Yes.
And based on those preliminary budgets, and what is the remaining contingency we have for those budgets?
$4 million.
$4 million, which represents what percentage of the total project you estimate?
4.5%.
4.5%. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Follow up.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Where did that contingency dollar come from? Where did that, the 4.5 million, did that come out of the actual 109, or is that someplace else? Because I know there was a certain amount of contingency that was added as a percentage into the original referendum fund, but where did the rest of that come from?
There's money in the referendum for it, and then there was some added interest income.
So we used the interest income off of the money from the bonds that's still in there? Okay.
Yep.
Did we use any of the lease levy for any of this?
There is no lease levy as part of this project at all.
This project? Okay.
Are there any general questions for our Nexus representative, Jeff? Seeing none, thank you very much for those answers. You are up next, Mr. Delwell.
Okay. As we start to develop SS9 site, I've asked Nexus for a proposal to help manage that, that project, civil engineering, bid irrigation, and they have before you a contract for, proposal for contract for planning, design, and construction management of the SS9 site. And I am seeking board approval for that. Total amount of the contract is $24,800.
Okay, do I have a motion for the acceptance of the proposal for the SS9 professional services? By Ben?
Second.
Second by Stacy. Are there any questions or comments?
Question?
Go ahead, Melissa.
So in the past, who did this work with us? We did it internally, the professional services?
Not internally. We would hire an architect, a civil engineer. We would hire other professionals to do this. We don't have the expertise in-house. We have to add irrigation, site grading, a lot of engineering.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Stacy.
And I just want to clarify, this is just for the SS9 piece, so we have our current ball fields and the fields that are currently being developed, and then we have the elementary site. This is basically to tie the two together.
Correct.
as
So
far
it's,
as-
it's smack dab in the middle between our current softball fields, then SS9, and then a new elementary site. So
So,
it does make sense.
yeah, so they, I mean, I know Nexus is doing either one of those projects on either side of it. So as far as the engineering, project management, but the actual, I think per the SS9 agreement, the actual like paying of the dirt and the moving and things is on PLA, correct?
So, correct. So as part of the agreement with that, with PLA for SS9 agreement was that they would grade, but they need elevations for that, and they would put topsoil down. They need requirements for that. They will seed.
So
and
they're
do
just
most of the
basically
work.
waiting to get instructions from us, is how
Correct.
we want the land to look. Okay.
The other tricky part of this is irrigation. We have to put a well in to irrigate these fields, and we're trying to figure out what the best way to do that is.
And I know it's in here, but I just wanted to make sure, confirm that. It says the terms and conditions of the agreement would be consistent with the AIA that we had signed with Nexus on February 12th.
I believe
of
that's
this-
in here.
Yes,
Yes.
this year. Just want to confirm that.
Are there any other questions, comments? No? Go ahead, Mary.
The 24.8, is that a fixed amount? So
That
that's
is
a fixed bid?
$24,800.
Not to exceed? Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none?
Question?
Go ahead, Melissa,
The
sorry.
term of the agreement?
I'm sorry?
The term of the agreement? I'm sorry,
The term? I'm assuming till completed? Till completion of the project.
says that there's a post-construction provide 11-month review.
Correct.
After the project, they'll review for another 11 months.
That's just to make sure that the grass comes in and the irrigation works.
Basically a punch list.
So the water flows the way it's supposed to and all that. Okay.
Right, and, I mean, we have to
Coming back
prove
to
that
check.
the irrigation
Right.
is working and
We
the
want to
grass
have
grows.
a full season of
Right.
going through the weather and
Yep.
being able to determine that, yeah. Makes sense.
Any other questions or comments? I will reiterate, this was also reviewed during the Facilities Long Range Planning Committee. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Oh, that passes 5-1.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda. Oh, you continue.
Yeah, I've got
Excuse me.
part two of the
I know,
presentation. That's
How
okay.
dare I cut you off? I'm sorry.
So the second part of the presentation is I'll be taking you through just a little bit of another round of updates on the new elementary school progress. We will have a deeper dive into the new elementary school specifics at the next work session. But if you recall the last few meetings, we've been going through some of the 2D renderings, looking at the classroom spaces, learning pods. We do have some 3D renderings. These are all draft, but just to give some perspective from the inside of the building. And so as we move forward, the things that were approved this evening, we will fill this in, but this is our internal progress as far as the projects and status as when things are happening and bids are being approved and moving forward with the work. And we'll jump into the new elementary. This is the draft mission, or this is the mission statement for the Prior Lake Savage Elementary School, crafted by our design team, as really was the start of their work and serving as a foundational piece. They also drafted guiding principles to help them in their work around the research in order to create that innovative student-centered learning environment and ensuring that these components are in the new elementary school designs moving forward. And so we're going to start with just sort of an overview of really that 2D again, looking at the full footprint, so to speak, of the new elementary school. The south side here is that main entry, coming into a secure entry to the office area, cafeteria, receiving, and gymnasium on the left-hand side. The Learning Commons, as you go into it, is more of a traditionally known as the Media Center. So this will be where the Media Center is, and it will also have open areas for student-teacher classroom collaboration. A, B, and C mark the two-level classroom towers throughout the building. And then that lighter blue on the south side is a special education suite. Looking at the second level, you see that second level of the classroom towers for A, B, and C, and space for art and music on the second level. Before I go to these, I want to bring you back. I'm going to show you a couple of, hold on here, renderings from the inside. Again, these are draft, but just to provide some perspective, we're going to be looking at this space. Can't really draw that. If you look at the main entry coming in by the gymnasium, cafeteria, looking into the Learning Commons, that's going to be the perspective that we show you. So this is as if you would walk into the new school. Your office is on the right-hand side, cafeteria is on the left, and you see access into the gymnasium. Looking forward is entering into the main part of the school and the Learning Commons. Again, this is a draft interior rendering. This is just to sort of provide some perspective to help stakeholders visualize what this could look like before it comes to the board for final review and approval. This is as you take a few steps in and look back. You see that secure entry, office is on the left-hand side, and then you have the area into the cafeteria and gymnasium. One of the design components is with the gymnasium and cafeteria with the office in the front. It's very similar to some of the more recent school constructions that have happened around the metro, but also too for before and after school events and activities. The alignment of these spaces really suits and provides for public access in a safe and secure manner, as well as students participating, you know, or activities that are happening on the weekends or after school, you know, from the gymnasium standpoint to cafeteria, things like that. This is a closer look into the Learning Commons. As you look at this, there's a stairs that goes up, and we'll take a step back here and look at that in just a moment. But you can see into the Media Center area, there'll be an area for certainly books and media materials. This, toward the left, is a glass conference room. That in the future is going to not be in our renderings. Our design team has looked at that. The administrative design team has looked at that, and there's not a need for that conference room, and so that will be pulled out in a future rendering. But again, this was something that, you know, we looked at as, you know, what is the need of this? What are the types of groups that are using it? And I think at the end, it was the perspective of having that space be more open and maybe using collaborative furniture or tables to set some of those spaces up to be able to have, classes and students in that space. As you take a step back, you see some of that more comfortable seating, but you also see that concept of a learning stairs where you can have school functions, school meetings, staff meetings, or after-school events as well. And so it becomes that point of being able to access the upstairs and that bridge or that pathway going across. So again, this is just some of the more, just a bit of a perspective of inside here in this main area. We will have more perspectives when we get to our next work session on the new elementary. So with that, that is our presentation for you this evening. The bid and quote overview and approval, and then just giving you a little bit more of a progress update on the work of the new elementary. We do have that design group coming back together this week on Thursday to do about an hour-long meeting to go through all the renderings, go through all the different components, get another round of feedback before we prepare those components for the board for the next work session, and ultimately seeking approval of the board at the December meeting. So,
Just a report tonight, but any questions for Mr. Holmberg on the renderings? Melissa?
So as I look at the floor plan main level, looks like first main level, we're showing the 3 wings, ABC. Can you share with us on each of those entrances to the classroom? It looks like a curved piece. Is that curved glass? What is it?
So as you've seen in other I don't have those renderings this evening, but we've taken a closer look at that. If you, I've shared that at the board, but as you look at some of those classrooms, there's a balance of rooms that are open and balance of rooms that have movable walls. So it's sort of the pod is a hybrid between what we have at Jeffers Pond and Red Tail Ridge and Glendale. And so as teachers are in there with students, they will have a choice of using open areas or areas to be able to be closed to be able to match student learning styles and the types of activities they want students to experience. So there's a balance of both. So that curve there, that curve there just represents a different flooring component of that room.
So it'll be something that's opaque, or it will be?
It'll be wide open.
It'll be wide open.
Correct.
Okay. How does that work with aligning with the security plan for preparedness for that issue?
So very much like the plans and prepared, protocols at Glendale and at Red Tail Ridge and Jeffers Pond, those would be the same protocols we'd utilize for this building and facility. And so we have the secure entry. We also have secure points at each of those learning pod areas. We also have classrooms that do have doors and secure areas and vestibules there. And so those would be all in place for this new building.
Okay, so we've done the scenario where, and I'm not talking about the secured entrance, I'm
Sure.
looking specifically at Commons A, for instance, or B, all 3 of them. And if you're looking at that classroom, where does a person, if we're doing the run, hide, fight mechanism, where does a person hide?
So that could be, as you look at that type of scenario, depending on where the threat is, what is the threat, they would be able to go into those other different classrooms there, or they would have to be in that room, that's there, depending on what that is. It's very much a scenario that we've also talked about in all of our schools. All of our schools have learning pod spaces and open areas, and so, our principals work with our staff in the event that, talk about in the event that there is some sort of threat that's internal in the building, what are staff and students to do when they're in resource areas or in the cafeteria, and how do they bring those run, hide, fight components in order to, keep themselves as safe as possible.
And when are we looking at approving this as a board?
The December regular meeting.
Yeah, the design will be reviewed at the study session in November and coming for final board approval in December.
Another design meeting before then, right?
This Thursday.
This Thursday. Okay, so what we'll see in our study session is after the design. So the study session will have it cleaned up from that
Yes.
conference room and all that kind of stuff, so we'll be
That.
looking at a final, okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none?
I just-
Oh, go ahead.
I just have a general comment. It's kind of exciting to see this finally coming to fruition. You've been talking about it for a while and hoping that it's going to happen, so it's kind of nice to actually see some renderings, even if they're not specifically the ones that'll be happening. And I just wanted to make a comment too, just going back to the bid process. I appreciate all the extra work to get the numbers back to where we can work with them, so I just wanted to say thanks. I'm sure it's a bigger headache than I know, so thank you.
Stacy, did you have?
No.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the American Education Week proclamation, which I will read. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they'll need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they custodians or teachers, administrators or clerical staff, bus drivers or librarians, cooks or support staff, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas our district and community hub bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in a common enterprise, now therefore the Prior Lake Savage Area School Board of Education does hereby proclaim November 12th through the 16th, 2018 as the 97th Annual Observance of American Education Week. And with that, each of you should have at your seats the calendar of visits for that week. All right. Next on the agenda is the proclamation for Youth Appreciation Week. And I will read that. Whereas the vast majority of youth are concerned, knowledgeable, and contributing partners within the community, and whereas the accomplishments and achievements of these young citizens deserves the recognition and praise of the community, and whereas Optimus International has since 1954 developed, promoted a program entitled Youth Appreciation Week, and whereas the citizens of Prior Lake Savage Area School District have indicated a desire to join the Optimists in expressing appreciation and approval of the contributions of youth, the District 719 Board of Education does hereby proclaim the third week of November as Youth Appreciation Week in the district. By this action, let it be known that we have faith in the ability of today's youth as they assume responsible roles in the future of humankind. Very nice. Thank you for that. Next on the agenda is policy. We have 3 policies tonight for final approval and presented tonight by Superintendent Dr. Stalo.
Thank you very much. I'd also note that Executive Director of Business Service, Julie Sink, will also, some of these policies fall under her preview as well. We reviewed these recommendations for some policy changes at the October 22nd board study session. No additional questions were submitted since that time. So this evening we are seeking approval on the following policies. We can either take those one at a time or in or all together.
I will look to the board for direction.
I would all together.
Yeah.
All together? All together. So, do you want to review quickly or just go ahead?
You know, I think with all 3 of them, and I'll let Julie speak to hers, I know with the policy 706, donations and gifts, we actually, our policy looks a little bit different than the MSBA model policy, but after reviewing that, we believe ours is solid and don't recommend any changes to that. I think there were some minor changes in yours, Julie, mostly titles of positions and things like that.
Okay. And policy 706, no significant changes there. And policy 721, no significant changes there. So do I have a motion for the acceptance of policy 702 procedure, policy 706, and policy 721?
So made.
by Stacy,
Second.
by Mary. Are there any additional questions or comments on these policies? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That passes 6-0. Next is administrative reports. Superintendent report, Dr. Stahlo.
Thank you. At Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, our mission is to educate all learners to reach their full potential as contributing and productive members of our ever-changing global community. Our collective work is focused on that mission, and this evening I'd like to highlight some of the work in which we've been engaged. First of all, the strategic plan review was a highly successful event with over 130 people in attendance on Thursday night. This was the first time we extended an invitation to all residents in our community to attend this review, and we were pleased to see a broad cross-section of our staff, students, families, and larger community in attendance. During the review, we shared our current state of the district along with the progress we have made to date on our strategic directions. We were able to answer questions, receive input, and listen to our stakeholders. This is in itself is a big part of our strategic plan as documented by our current strategic direction, which calls us to engage parents, families, and community to strengthen a culture of respect and inclusion. A few key takeaways from the evening. We're making progress as a district on our current strategic directions. We take community input seriously and believe it is essential in helping us shape district goals. And we're ready to make some adjustments with our strategic directions with more than 130 voices weighing in and providing input. For next steps, we've gathered the input, which will serve as consultation to our administrative team. As the team reviews the feedback, we will then present our findings and recommendations to you, the board, for final decision making. National Farm to School Month celebration also has been taking place. In celebration of the National Farm to School Month, Child Nutritious Services, Five Hawks, and Grainwood hosted legislator to lunch visits. The purpose was to highlight our farm to school program, school gardens, e-STEM curriculums, and continue to build more support for these initiatives. All currently sitting local, state, and national legislators, as well as the local farmers that partner with our district, were invited, and several attended. Special thanks to Jamie Anderson, Emily Malone, Tim Bell, Patrick Glenn, and the Child Nutritious Services team for these two wonderful events. Just a side note on this, at Grainwood, I was eating a kale salad next to a fourth grader who planted the kale in the school garden. That was pretty amazing. And as Rich just shared, next week is American Education Week. This week represents a time for us to formally recognize the importance of public education, the dedication of our teachers, support staff and administrators, and accomplishments of our students. I'd like to thank all of our Prior Lake Savage Area School staff. I'm glad many of them are in attendance this evening, along with our many parent volunteers and community partners who support us throughout the school year. And to those who attended our strategic plan review to provide input to help us shape the future of our district. Our school district excels because of this collective effort.
Thank you. Next is administrative reports. Any administrative reports this evening? Thank you. Next on the agenda are board reports. Are there any board reports? Melissa? Go ahead, Stacy.
Lee and I and Dr. Stahlo went on a school visit, I think on Friday, and we're trying to just kind of make our way around, I think, to as many things that we could see. And we just had a really great visit with a lot of students and staff. We started at the high school and saw a lot of the footings, the construction going on. We're able to go in some of the shop classes, kind of talk to Dr. Bezick about what's going to be happening with construction, but then spent a good amount of time in the kitchen and ate some carrots that were harvested that day, which was pretty cool, from the garden, and had basically a Chipotle bowl, which is, I mean, my kids have been gone out for like 4 years, but it's amazing to me, like, the amount of choice that they have, which I think is great. And how they're able to serve as many kids as they're able to serve with all the different areas that they're trying to serve from. So it was really fabulous. And then we handed over to Hidden Oaks and talked to Sasha there for a while. Spent some time in a cooking class, making our way around where the lunchroom's kind of going to be expanded and where some of those spots. And so went into an art room for a while, had some good time in there. And then we ended up at Edgewood and Westwood and Lola Doglo, and went in there and talked to a number of staff there. We're like overwhelmed with how good the kids are at speaking Spanish by third grade. It's like incredible. Had no idea what they were saying, but
We weren't talking with them, we were
No.
just listening.
and we're pretty amazed with that program. Spent a little time, the SAGE group as well, talking about that program. And then just seeing the construction going on there and what they've had to do to like make things work between the two buildings and what they've been doing just as far as the lunch program, you know, as ongoing. And so really saw the need there. So it was great. I mean, I spent a number of hours, and it's just kind of always great to kind of be able to get into the buildings and see, you know, what's happening every day. So I think we had a really good visit. I don't know if I missed anything.
No, it was really fun. The kids were excited to see us, the teachers are excited. It took us longer at the high school than we planned because every classroom we went by, they all had something they wanted to show us. So it was fun. It was a good day, and it was helpful to see on site what's going on in all the different schools with the construction too. So, and everybody's adapting to
Right.
it. So that's,
One of the things
thank you.
that I think's been cool that we've had board reports a lot about is the flexible seating. So to be able to see that at the high school and how students are using it there, as well as all the way down to the elementary level, I mean, and what they're doing for it, I mean, it can be as simple as like a milk cart with like a nice little cushion that somebody's like done at home. I mean, it and how the kids have 5 or 6 different options. You know, it could be a yoga mat. I mean, it's pretty cool how it's self-directed, and you're able to, depending on how you feel that day or how you like to learn, pick somewhere that's really appropriate. And you can see the kids kind of nestle in and get comfortable with where they're at. So I you know, to be able to hear about it here at the board, but to actually see it in action, it's pretty cool to see how it affects learning, so.
And not all, I mean, there was a lot of options in the classroom. It wasn't all one kind of seating. I mean, it was
Like
very
there was
different
like
in each
5 or
classroom.
6 in one room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get all picked. So it was good.
Yeah. So.
I had the opportunity to visit Westwood. I had a nice visit with Principal Karen, and we talked about some of the challenges that building has as being a building that was built in 1960s with the long hallways, classrooms on each side. There's not a lot of breakout space for students to break out and do individual work, and some of the challenges they also face they have some of the older students in there for Spanish speaking and for SAGE, and what is going to go forward for these children. Are they going to transition into middle school in those type of programs? And that's something for the strategic plan I think we'll look at. And I also had the opportunity to attend the strategic planning, and it was very gratifying to listen to Marcus talk about when we came on the board, the number of wireless network hubs and infrastructure we had and where we're at today. And then some of those things we start out with our strategic plan. Number of the participants there said, do we really need that strategic goal? That's just how we do business concerning like eSTEM and technology. So that was kind of gratifying. And anticipating our study session concerning the strategic plan. Mary?
Well, like most of us here, I had the opportunity to attend the strategic planning session too, and I think on top of everything else, what struck me the most was the recognition that not only are the kindergartners going to graduate in 2031, which makes me feel very old, but also the reminder that when they do graduate, the world will be vastly different because it's changing so often with the technology and with the needs and the requirements. So it really puts it in perspective, the ability to be flexible and to introduce all the skill sets in a way that's obviously very difficult to keep up with within our education system. I also had the opportunity today to do the MinCaps kickoff. I think I saw your name on a list too. Yeah, so first mentoring sessions today, I had several of them in a row, plus worked with a team for their business project. So I spent most of the day going back and forth between MinCaps just today, and it was tremendous. And then, of course, we had the kickoff for the curriculum committee earlier today and talking about what's going to be on the curriculum for the new classes and what's worked and what hasn't worked for next year. So looking forward to seeing that final product at the December board meeting to vote on what's going to be available. It was pretty exciting.
Anything else? Seeing none. Future events, election day tomorrow, so if you have not already, I will join the chorus. If you have not already voted, please do. End of the quarter is November 8th, so there's a 2-hour early release, grades K through 12. The board will meet this Friday at 7 a.m. to canvass the election results. Also, there's no school Friday for grades E through 12. November 11th is Veterans Day. There will be teacher conferences on November 13th, 15th, and 19th, grades E through 5th. And there is a youth appreciation lunch at Fong's at 11:30 for November 14th. And November 19th is our next study session right here at 6 p.m. And then Thanksgiving break is November 21st through the 23rd, 2018. Those are the upcoming events, and with that, there's no other items before the board, so I will accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
By Lee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mary. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That passes 6-0. This meeting is hereby adjourned.